Hi, Stitchers. Welcome to Tatreez Talk, where we share conversations about Palestinian embroidery. I'm Amani here with my co-host Lena, chatting with talented embroiderers and artists, sharing their stories, inspirations, and the cultural significance behind their work.
On today's episode, we're chatting with Linda, a Tatreez artist and the founder of the Haleemah Project. Linda, we are so glad to have you with us. Welcome to Tatreez Talk.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're
Yeah.
excited to have you. And so we want to kick off, Linda, by asking you to tell us a little bit about you and your family's connection to Palestine.
Yeah, so both sides of my family are from Al Abbasiyya, which is just a small town outside of Jaffa. They were orange tree farmers on both sides as well. My mom's side, grandpa ended up in Amman in 48, and my Teta side of the family ended up in Ramallah. And then on my dad's side, they both ended up in Amman in refugee camps there as well.
Right. I actually have cousins who their father is from Al Abbasiyya, so
We
we might
probably
be
know each other.
I know we might be related by marriage. You might be related. We'll talk about it later. And where did you grow up? Did you grow up in the diaspora, in the West, within the Arab world? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up in Edmonton, Canada. So I born and raised here. My mom grew up in, she was born in Jordan, but then she grew up in Saudi. So they moved around a lot as well. Um, and just a little bit everywhere. Now the family's sort of spread out. I would say most of us are still in Jordan. There's a
Mhm.
few extended in Ramallah, but everyone's a little bit all over the place now.
Yeah, as per usual, the usual Palestinian
Yeah.
story, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, Linda, how did you get started with Tatreez? Curious to hear about that.
I think I was in university when I was really interested in learning. And I asked my mom to teach me, but she was out of practice for so many years.
Mhm.
And I was trying to find places to learn, but this was like back in 2016, 2017. There wasn't much online or anywhere you could go. So I sort of just left it for a while. And then after I finished university and I started working, I ended up going on a trip to Jordan to visit my grandma, and I made her teach me. Yeah, so that was a really great like bonding experience for us. And then my aunt was also there and she taught us. And my first piece was actually like a butterfly. You know those like kits
Oh,
that already have it drawn on and you just have
Yes.
to,
yeah.
yeah, so that was mine. And then when I came back, I ended up teaching my sister, and then my mom saw us stitching. So she was like, okay, let me get back into this. So now all three of us do it.
That's so cute.
Oh,
I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So no,
That's
it was,
really
go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say that's like really beautiful. I'm curious, like what are some of the Hajj Tatriz tips and knowledge that your grandma gave you?
She is like a fan of doing like the half stitch and then going all the way
Mm.
down and then filling it back up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Starting from the center for sure and working
Mm-hmm.
your way around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then also some of her tricks is like doing like a loose thread that goes through the middle on one side and the other to sort of make like a big plus sign. And
Oh,
then
to
that way
find the
you know
center.
exactly where the center is and
mhm.
you can use it as a guide when you're working
Mm-hmm.
around.
Oh, that's a
Mm.
good trick. Yeah,
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 I
I love
like
it.
that.
it's very helpful.
Did your grandma, I'm just always curious because
Mhm.
I'm so reliant on modern technology to like design and plan all my pieces and my patterns. Like how did your grandma teach you? Was it like just kind of like mimicking pieces that she had, or is it from memory? How was her process like?
Some of them are from memory, like, she's
Mhm.
been stitching since she was a little girl, so that's a
Yeah.
good like 60, 70 years of stitch work.
Hmm.
Um, but she would have me take pictures of things and show me how I can copy. And so we
Wow.
did it based off that because my memory is not as strong as hers. Um, yeah,
None of ours
Yeah,
are. Yeah.
I know, mashallah.
inshallah.
That's really cool. So, okay, so then you came back, you taught your sister, you said now like so it's now very much a family affair, it seems
Yeah.
like. And what does it look like for you as far as like locally? Like, is there a community beyond your family that you are now engaging with and stitching with?
Yeah, actually, in 2021, after Sheikh Jarrah, our Palestinian association in the city ended up doing Tatreez classes. And so it was great because a lot of my friends or a lot of other people I didn't know took those classes. And then now there's like a Tatreez circle here. And so it's like great to just get together, have coffee and stitch. But I was like, where were you guys, years ago when I wanted to
Yeah.
learn? But no, it worked out great because I love that it was my grandmother that taught me.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So what does your Tatriz routine look like now? Do you typically stitch at home with your sister and mom most days? Is it like a once on the weekend kind of thing? What does that look like?
Honestly, it's a lot of reality TV and then just stitching.
Same.
Yeah. Right now it's Love is Blind. I'm like catching up on all the episodes and then I just sit
UK is
and
a good
stitch.
season.
Yeah, it's a very good season. And then in the summer, I feel like that's when we more so stitch together because we're always sitting on the patio and having tea
Hmm.
and um, that kind of thing.
It's so nice. It's like so like serene and peaceful. Um,
Yeah,
so I think that leads us to, in the beginning we mentioned you're the founder of the Haleemah Project.
yeah.
Can you share with our listeners like what is the Haleemah Project? What how did this come to be and what's kind of the purpose behind this project for you?
Uh, the project kind of became like a beast of itself. Um, and I did not expect it to be what it was, but it sort of started at the beginning of this current genocide. And I was just looking for a way to like keep my hands busy. So I ended up stitching Handallah and a flag on my brother's sweater. Then my other brother asked for something, and my other brother did. And then their friends wanted stuff. And then some of my sister's friends wanted. So I was like, you know what? I'll just make like a page and then maybe people in our community who want to, and I can do it for donations. And then it just sort of blew up from there. And it was a bit chaotic, but it was great. It was really fun. Another friend of mine came in and joined us. So me, my sister, my mom, and my friend are all the people working behind the Haleemah Project.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the goal was just to, one, give people a piece of Tatreez who might not have access to it, whether they're Palestinian or not. It's a symbol of resistance. So it was something tangibly that they could have as well as a way that they could give back. And so it was kind of that double piece. And then the name Haleemah Project is actually named after my great grandmother. So this is my mom's mom's mom. It goes that way.
Hmm.
Um, so I was seeing lots of stories of, the thousands of pregnant women in Gaza who were giving birth under these horrible conditions. And it just reminded me of her story. Um, in May of 1948, the day that her town, Al Abbasi, was raided, was also the day that she gave birth to my Khalu Ayub. And it was a very like scary time. And, it was, she had to send away my grandpa or my great grandpa with the other kids because she wanted to protect them. So she gave birth all by herself underneath an olive tree. And subhanAllah, like she did pass out, but nothing happened to her or the baby. She had to cut her own umbilical cord. She had to find
Wow.
them again. It's like a very sad story, but also a very powerful one. And I think seeing the parallels between then and now was,
Hmm.
I think like I've always heard the story, but it truly brought it to reality and I think gave it a lot more emotion. And she herself was a Tatreez artist and she made thobes and she decorated her homes with it. And, I actually have a thobe that she made that my grandma passed down to me. It's just beautiful to know that I'm carrying on the traditions of my ancestors, that my grandmother did it, my mother did it, my great grandmother did it, and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really powerful story and very powerful connection to have with your great grandmother. And you mentioned that it's you, your mom, your sister stitching. So you also mentioned that there is a charitable element. So you guys are
Mhm.
stitching these pieces, you're making it available to the public. And can you tell us a little bit more about like the charitable element to it all?
Yeah, of course. So there's two avenues of our fundraising project. One of them is for the stitchers. So if there's any designs on my page that we've designed ourselves that you like, you just message me and show me your receipt that you donated to one of the GoFundMe's that we're
Mhm.
campaigning for, and
Mhm.
then we'll email you a PDF copy. And then the other avenue is we're doing 15 by 15 centimeter like patterns on the side of your sweaters. Upcycled clothing is preferred. And we'll create a design that's either specific for you, or if there's a design that you really like, we'll do that for you as well. Stitch it and send it out to you so that you have your little piece of Tatreez. And that one is going to, right now, we're donating everything to Islamic Relief Canada,
Mhm.
to Palestine Emergency Aid.
That's
Wow.
beautiful. And so where do the designs come from? Are these things that you're coming up with yourself, or how do you think of the designs?
I love the traditional Tatreez. I would say, like, when I get a chance to do those, I really enjoy them. And I'm actually much better at creating designs with those. With the symbols of resistance, those ones are a little bit more trickier, but they always turn out, I would say, really beautiful when you're kind of put in a corner of, okay, this person wants X, Y, and Z in a pattern, and you have to figure out a way to put it together nicely. So that's honestly how a lot of them come about is people are asking me for specific things that they find important or that they see the value in the symbols of, and you sort of have to find a way to put it together really nicely. Like one girl I think asked for, different fruits and plants of Palestine, and I was like, okay, how do I make that look really nice? And we ended up putting it in like a postage stamp style so that we could fit them all in there, and it ended up
Yeah.
turning out really beautiful. But yeah, they kind of like push my creativity, which is always really great.
That is cool. That is so cool. And so these, you said they're 15 by 15 centimeters. Do you have any larger projects that you work on? Maybe like personal projects, not necessarily for the Haleemah Project?
I do. They keep getting pushed aside, but I do have a few of them. I did a piece, like a wall hanging piece for my sister's house when she got a new place. And I'm currently working on a one for my other sister's house. I have a lot of siblings and they have a lot of demands. And I do have like a tote bag that I've done. I feel like everyone's done the tote bag at some point. I'm also working. Last time I went to Jordan, I bought enough supplies to make two thobes, and I'm like
Oh,
barely started on one. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that one is very interesting because my mom has a friend she's not a tatrizer, but she's a
seamstress.
seamstress. So
Yeah.
she's taking care of that part of the thobe for me, which is really great. And then I'm like with my grandma on the phone trying to FaceTime and be like, okay, where does this go?
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
So where are you with this though? I know you say you haven't gotten very far, but like where are you in the process?
I've picked out my colors and I've
Okay.
made my designs.
Ooh,
It's
okay. Wait,
very
did
Gaza.
you designed the whole piece already together?
Yeah,
Or
like
the whole
just on
dress?
my app. So
Mm-hmm.
I created the patterns there. The
Okay.
first one's gonna be very simple, but this one is very Gaza inspired. And
Okay.
then my hope is that the second one will be very Yafa inspired because
Mm.
that's my family.
Mm, I love it. I love it. Okay, what colors are you like leaning towards? This is my fun part.
Okay, so for the first thobe, I'm doing lots of pink and red with a lot of
Hmm.
accent colors of like yellow and green and blue. But the heaviness of it will be like this very light pink color and this darker
Hmm.
red.
Hmm.
And then for the one from Yafa, I wanted to base it around the orange trees. So the
Oh,
colors are
beautiful.
light and dark green, light and dark orange, and like a cream
Mm.
color. and the
Mm-hmm.
fabric is brown, kind of like I was
Ooh.
thinking very much like the dirt and the soil and how the trees come out. So the bark. So like those
Yeah.
were sort of how I imagined that one to be.
Mm-hmm. I love that
Mm.
story.
Thanks.
Oh yeah,
That's
you need to
really
send
neat.
photos so that we can share the inspo, the color inspo for the listeners. That's amazing. I love that.
Oh, I definitely will. Yeah.
Amazing,
Beautiful.
amazing. So you have all of these things going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And we understand that there are actually a couple of fundraising initiatives as well, in addition, or is that what you were talking about before, the Tatreez on upcycled clothing and the digital patterns? Those are all kind of
Yeah.
part of those. Okay. Are there
Yeah.
any
Those are the
other?
two.
Yeah.
I think I've done a few others. Every now and again, I'll post on my story something. Like for example, we had two families who were able to make it out of Gaza come to Edmonton and be with their families. So I did like a 24-hour fundraiser for them. Anybody who wanted to donate, or I rallied people in the city if they wanted to, if they had any furniture or anything that could help get their place set up. So there are things like that that happen sometimes, but mainly it's just those two, the
Got it.
GoFundMe and the upcycled Tatreez.
Can I ask, and I know we touched on this a little bit
Yeah.
earlier, but it seems like, so much of the work that you're doing, you're tapping into your local community as well as like the greater
Mhm.
Palestinian community, but it seems like you're really tapping into your local community a lot.
Mhm.
And I know you mentioned that things kind of started becoming more active a few years ago, but I'm curious just to understand like how have things evolved in your local community, like through your Tatreez practice and through connecting with people through Tatreez.
Um, I mean, one, it's been great to see like our Palestine Association just become a lot more involved and it grew so much and
Mhm.
there's so many facets to it. And I think with that, it's helped a lot of people in our community connect with one another. Their Tatreez class, I think, really boosted Tatreez in our community and
Mhm.
got everybody into it. And they actually have this piece. They're trying to make like the world's largest, I think, like Tatreez piece or something, and
Mhm.
everybody made like a small square and they're sewing it all together and it's this huge banner and they keep adding to it, which is really great. And I think that also created a sense of community. There was a point in time where I'd go to like a coffee shop or I'd visit a friend or I'd go with my mom to visit her friends and everyone was working on a square.
Oh, I love that.
And it was just so great. Like I contributed, I think 4 pieces, and my mom did 4, and it taught people how to do tatreez, and everyone was really getting into it. So it was a lot of fun, and it's great that the project is still going and people are still so into it. So it's great just to see everybody really connecting with that side of tatreez. Whereas, like less than 5, 6 years ago, there weren't that many people in our community. So
Yeah.
very grateful for that.
No, I hear you. It's amazing that you guys have a
Yeah,
Palestinian, you said like a Palestinian like cultural association. Is that what
yeah,
it is?
yeah.
That's really cool that you guys even have that. So there's like a big enough community in Edmonton. I know nothing about like the community in Canada, no shade. I'm lazy.
There's a lot of us
Um
up here. There's a lot of
yeah,
us up here, a
I
lot of us
believe it.
here in Calgary, Toronto, especially in Montreal. There we're a pretty big community up here, surprisingly so.
I love that. We have some Canadian girlies coming with us to our Tatreez retreat actually. So we're gonna meet some of the Canadian community IRL, which is gonna be fun.
Oh, that'll be great. I'll come to the next one.
Oh
Inshallah.
yes,
Yes, you
inshallah.
should. You
Inshallah.
should.
We're already talking about what to do next. So
My mom and I tried doing a Tatreez retreat a few weekends
mm,
ago. We are like, oh, let's go to, there's this lake just outside of
mm,
Edmonton. We're like, oh, we'll
mhm.
go there, we'll stitch by the water, it'll be so great. It rained the whole time.
Oh
So we were just in the hotel room
Oh.
and then we left. And we're like, next time.
Oh, what a
Oh,
buzzkill.
well, I mean,
I
you can still
know.
do Tatreez inside, but it defeats the whole purpose, I guess.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
actually, so what are your mom and
Noted.
sister working on these days now that you've gotten them back into it?
Um, So my mom, I actually took her to the store and I made her pick out like fabric and everything. And I was like, you are going to make me a thobe because I have one from my great grandmother and I have one from my grandmother. And I was like, I need one from you, and then I'll make one. And then it's like, I have like all four, which will be really great. So that's what she's working on in her spare time outside of Haleemah Project. My sister, she's just working on Haleemah Project stuff. She was like, oh, when you have something, give it to me. Otherwise, she's a little more detached. But yeah, so she's just working on that stuff.
Well, that's a lot of work. So
Yeah.
kudos to all of them. That's awesome. I like how you mentioned that you have lots of siblings who are demanding. It sounds like you're also demanding. I love it.
A little bit, a little bit.
Honestly, I
As a
can
Palestinian
relate.
woman should be.
Yeah.
I
There's
see
a lot of
nothing wrong
stuff
with
to do.
that. Exactly, exactly. See nothing wrong with that. Okay, so Linda, I want to ask you, of course, like, are there any major life lessons that you have learned and you've taken away
Mhm.
from Tatreez?
I think one of the bigger ones is that I learned how to be mindful and sort of have my quiet time. Before I was very like go, go, go. And I think Tatsuri's makes you stop and like sit for a little bit, and you really have to have patience. But I think what's also really great is that I learned a lot about our history with all the different
Mm,
motifs, all the different techniques, how different people do things, how to create designs, really just tap into that creative side. I always knew I had it, but I never really had an outlet for it. So it's been great to sort of develop that aspect of it. Um, and, just really, I think it's like when you're stitching, a lot of times I think about my grandma, or I think about my
mm,
mom, or I think about my great grandma, and how, this was an outlet for them. And also this was a source of income for them. It's a source of
mhm,
survival for them. And it's a tool that you can always have in your back pocket. And it's
mhm,
something that you can always carry with you wherever you go, whether you're on a plane or whether, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, like it's always something that you can have. Um, and it's always great when you meet like another Tatreezer, and you just feel that like instant connection, like, oh, what are you working on? Oh my God, we're doing the same thing. And then it gets,
yes.
I think one time I was in the airport and there was somebody else stitching, and we just became like fast friends for, that flight. And then it was like, okay, this is great. And I think that sense of community that, you never really had before, and really um, tapping into that and that sort of collective practice.
Mhm,
And yeah, and I think just understanding the weight of what it is that we're doing. It's not
mhm,
just embroidery. It's our history, it's our future, it's who we are,
mhm.
it's womanhood, like it's girlhood, it's all of that stuff. Um, yeah, I would
Yeah,
say,
no.
yeah,
I
that's
love
it.
no, I love what you were saying about the history part of it, because that's definitely something that I think you
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily learn or dive into if it wasn't for Tatreez,
Hmm.
right? Like you start learning about, oh, like this region has these colors because A, B, and C, and the natural plants or the natural like animals and like the
Yeah.
dyes or Ipsit Ish. Like you start learning these very like specific nuanced things when you really dive
Hmm.
into the history of Tatreez. You really do dive into the history of Palestine, which I think
Yeah.
is really beautiful. And I'm glad that you said that, because I think it's really important for us to remember too.
Hmm. And it's so great when you learn like where a motif came from or what inspired it. I mean, I know we can't know exactly all the time, but
Hmm.
even just having that background information, like and when I get it, I try to share it. Like I learned recently about the Damascus rose, and how, there were a lot of people from Damascus, Syria, who ended up coming down into Ramle, which is why, that motif came to existence. And so it even shows you how back then people were
Hmm.
connecting and creating and, getting inspired from one another, which is something we're doing right now. If I see a
Yes.
piece online, I'm like, oh, that's so cute, but I would do it this way, and then
Hmm.
you change it and you make it your own. Or if I see something my grandmother has made, I'm like, oh, I'll do this, but in different colors. And so it ends up
Mm-hmm.
just looking like a whole other piece, which is how they did it, right?
Yeah.
My grandma's always sending me pictures of stuff from her friends' houses and being like, oh, Linda will want to stitch this.
Aw.
And that's basically what they did, right? They just copied off of one another and tweaked
Yeah.
it to make it their own. And it's great to see that we're still doing that today, even online, and taking inspiration from one another and taking inspo from our history and from the different, colors of different regions. So,
Yeah, no, that's real. I mean, you look at even like the Intifada dress is a perfect example of like how many different iterations there are
yeah,
of what an Intifada dress is, because it really exactly what you're saying is like women would like see things, get inspired,
yeah.
make it their own. And I think that there is a very big difference. And there is an appreciation for being inspired by somebody's work versus, I think what oftentimes people think of like, oh, taking someone's work and taking credit for it. There's definitely a big difference between being
Oh, yeah,
inspired, because when you're inspired, you're also like giving credit to what came or who came, and the
yeah,
design, the artist that came before you, and like where it came from. So
yeah,
yeah, it's definitely like a part of the threes is to be inspired by what you see
yeah.
around you, both like in nature as well as
Mhm.
with like other art that you see around you.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's how Tatreez evolved, right? Like that's probably how a lot of motifs are created. That's probably how a lot of designs are created. Like I'm sure in one area when they created the chest panel, making it more square, other regions started copying, but adding in their own mix to it. And so it just continues and evolves from there. And it will continue to evolve from here, right? So
Definitely.
Totally, totally. Linda, it was so lovely chatting with you. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Where can everyone find you and see all the beautiful designs and donate and just be a part of your community as well, maybe in Edmonton?
yeah, you guys can just find me at the Haleemah Project on Instagram. And I've got my link tree there and my DMs are open. So that's usually the best way to reach me.
Amazing. And we'll link it all in the show notes. So it'll be very easy for people to find you.
Yeah, great. Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. It was so great to talk to you guys. I've been a fan of your work for a long time. So it's great to meet you and get to know you as well.
Thank
Likewise.
you. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your work with everyone.
We will talk
Thank
to
you
you
so
soon,
much.
Linda. Thank
Let's
you.
talk soon. Take care.
It was so good to chat with Linda. I almost called her Haleemah.
I know.
It was so good to chat with Linda about, her journey and the work that she's doing and really what inspired her to do this work. I think obviously being her family, her great grandmother. Is that
Right.
like,
I think it was her
wait, did I
great
get it
grandmother.
right? It's her great grandmother.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful to hear what has inspired her and kept her going. And I just love hearing the fact that like, she's found like this beautiful community locally and it's growing. So if you're in Edmonton, hit up Linda and join the local community. We're all for that.
Yeah. And I love that, she was able to go find out on her own, but then she brought her sister and her mom into
It's so
it with
cute,
her.
right? I know.
I love that. Yeah, I love stitching with my mom. I feel like it's a very, even if she's not doing tatreez, if she's doing like her knitting projects or whatever, there's something
Yeah.
really special about the intergenerational, I don't know,
Hmm.
practice. But that's so beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that.
It's like I love stitching with people, but if we're keeping it real, I get zero stitching done when I'm stitching with people.
It's also
Because
true. It's
I'm
also
just
true.
chatting, I'm gossiping, I'm chatting. Like, what's the tea, girl? What's going on? What's the shay? But it's still fun.
It's still fun. It's still fun. I think, yeah, maybe because that's why I like stitching with my mom because we don't talk. We're like,
Oh, dead.
she knows me. I know her, obviously, like, don't
Yeah,
interrupt.
we're familiar.
Yes, we're familiar.
That's so
Ah,
funny.
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. Well, guys, thank you again for listening to another episode of Tatreez Talk. We want to hear about your Tatreez journeys. So please, please, please share your stories with us at tatreeztalk@gmail.com, and we might just have you on an upcoming episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite listening platform and be sure to leave a 5-star review. You can follow me at Lina's Thobe, Amani at Minamani, and of course, follow the pod at Tatreez Talk. We will talk to you guys soon.